You think you chose to watch this video. But what if a set of instructions, written years ago and running on a server hundreds of miles away, made that decision for you? The really weird part is, you're still the one who clicked. This isn't some glitch in the Matrix. It's a 2,000-year-old philosophical idea that perfectly explains your life online. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why your choices might be an illusion, but your freedom is very, very real. Let's be honest. You've felt it. It's that creeping suspicion you get late at night when you're endlessly scrolling a feed, watching videos you didn't look for, but somehow can't look away from. It's the whisper when an online store recommends a product you were just thinking about, like it's reading your mind. That suspicion is, are my choices really my own? In a world run by algorithms, where our every click, pause, and preference is logged, analyzed, and used to predict our next move, the whole idea of free will feels, well, a little fragile. It feels like an outdated notion from a simpler time, and the data seems to back up this anxiety. Studies have shown that AI can predict our choices seconds before we're even consciously aware of making them, just by looking at our brain activity or digital footprints. This predictive power is the engine of the modern internet. It's what keeps us engaged, drives commerce, and what, to many of us, feels like a subtle kind of control. This whole situation drops a huge philosophical problem in our laps. If your actions can be predicted, are you truly free? If a machine knows what you'll do before you do it, where did your choice even happen? This question feels incredibly modern, born from our hyper-connected world. But the heart of this dilemma is ancient. Philosophers have wrestled with a nearly identical problem for centuries, not with algorithms, but with determinism, the idea that every single event is the unavoidable result of what came before it, all governed by the laws of nature. And in that struggle, they came up with a powerful, counterintuitive, and maybe even liberating idea: compatibilism. Compatibilism is the theory that free will and determinism aren't enemies. They can actually coexist. It redefines what it means to be free, not as having some magic power to act outside the universe's causal chain, but as being able to act on your own desires and intentions without being forced by something or someone else. Now, that might sound like a philosophical cop-out, just moving the goalposts on what freedom is. But as we're about to see, it might just be the most useful way to understand our own autonomy in an age where our desires are constantly being predicted, packaged, and sold right back to us. Today, we're going on a journey from the engine rooms of modern AI to the minds of Enlightenment philosophers to answer the question: in the age of algorithms, is free will an illusion? And if it is, what does that mean for us? To really get the problem, we first have to appreciate just how powerful and pervasive these systems are. We talk about the algorithm like it's one single entity, a ghost in the machine pulling our strings. But in reality, it's a huge ecosystem of predictive models, each one laser-focused on a single goal: capturing and directing your attention. Think of it less like a puppet master and more like an invisible city built around you, where every street sign is designed to guide you somewhere specific. Let's start with your Netflix homepage. When you open it, you aren't just seeing a library of movies. You're seeing a personalized reality, curated just for you. The rows, the order of the titles, even the thumbnail image for a movie, it's all a complex calculation. Netflix's algorithm has analyzed not just what you've watched, but when you watched it, what you paused on, what you gave up on after 5 minutes, and what you binged in one sitting. It compares this to millions of other users, creating taste clusters. It knows that people who liked some obscure documentary also tend to enjoy a specific foreign language drama. So, When that drama pops up on your screen with a 98% match label, clicking on it feels less like a discovery and more like an inevitability. You were led there. The path was paved for you. Now think about TikTok or the For You page on Instagram and YouTube. These are even more powerful examples of this algorithmic guidance. Unlike Netflix, where you still consciously decide to watch a 90-minute film, these platforms run on microtransactions of your attention. The currency is just a few seconds of your time. The algorithms here are rapid-fire learning machines. They don't need you to fill out a profile. They learn from your digital body language. Did you linger on a video for a fraction of a second longer? Did you swipe away instantly? Did you watch it twice? Share it? Every tiny action is a vote, a breadcrumb of your desire. Within minutes of you using one of these apps for the first time, the algorithm starts building a model of your psyche. It learns your sense of humor, your anxieties, your curiosities, your politics. Then, it starts feeding you a non-stop stream of content, perfectly tuned to keep you hooked. This creates a powerful feedback loop. The algorithm shows you what it thinks you want. You engage with it, which reinforces its model of you, which lets it show you even more of what you want. In a very real sense, you're co-creating your own digital prison. Every scroll feels like a choice, but the menu of options is so exquisitely tailored to your pre-existing biases that straying from the path feels almost impossible. The For You page becomes a For You destiny. This goes way beyond entertainment. E-commerce sites like Amazon use the same principles. Customers who bought this also bought is a classic example of collaborative filtering. It's a mechanism that doesn't just suggest products, it surfaces needs you didn't even know you had. The system predicts your future desires based on the collective behavior of millions. When you buy that extra gadget you hadn't planned on, did you freely choose it? Or were you just following a statistical probability, a path of least resistance laid out for you by data? This is the core of what some philosophers call technological determinism. It's the idea that a society's tech drives its social structure and cultural values. In our case, the tech is predictive AI, and the structure it's creating is one of passive consumption and predictable behavior. These systems aren't evil. They aren't trying to enslave us. Their goal is much more boring: efficiency. An algorithm just wants to be an efficient channel for our will, as the philosopher Jacques Ellul might say. It wants to remove friction, to give us what we want before we even know we want it. But in its relentless quest for efficiency, it builds an environment where our choices become shockingly predictable. We can see the effects of this everywhere. Political polarization gets amplified as algorithms feed us content that confirms what we already believe, pushing us deeper into our echo chambers. Trends sweep the globe in hours because the system identifies a tiny spark of interest and force feeds it to millions at once. Our very sense of self can get warped as we start performing for the algorithm, tailoring our posts and our behavior to what we know the machine will reward. This is the cage we're in. It's a comfortable cage, sure, filled with endless entertainment and frictionless shopping. But it's still a cage. It's a world where our path feels increasingly laid out for us, where the script of our digital lives feels like it's already been written. A hard determinist would look at all this and say, "See? Told you so. Free will is an illusion. You're a puppet, and the algorithm is pulling the strings." That's a pretty bleak and disempowering conclusion. It leaves us as passengers in our own lives. But what if there's another way to look at this? What if the predictability of our choices doesn't cancel out our freedom? To understand that, we need to step back from the blinking servers of Silicon Valley and into the salons of the 18th century. That feeling of being trapped by forces beyond our control? It's not new. Long before algorithms, philosophers worried about a different kind of determinism, the idea that every event in the universe, including every human action, is the inevitable result of a chain of cause and effect set in motion at the beginning of time. If the universe runs on fixed physical laws, and your brain is a physical thing in that universe, then isn't every thought and decision you make ultimately predetermined? For centuries, the debate was stuck between two camps. On one side, the hard determinists, who said that since everything is caused, no one really has free will. Our feeling of freedom is just an illusion. On the other side were the libertarians, not the political kind, who insisted that we must have free will, so determinism must be false. They argued for a special kind of metaphysical freedom, an ability for the human mind to somehow step outside the causal chain of the universe and make a choice that wasn't caused by anything before it. But a third group emerged with a radical and elegant solution: the compatibilists. They looked at this epic philosophical brawl and basically said, what if you're all missing the point? What if the whole fight is based on a misunderstanding of what free will even means? The compatibilist argument, at its core, is that free will and determinism aren't in conflict at all. They're perfectly compatible. The key, they said, is to define freedom correctly. Let's use a classic analogy. Imagine you're in a locked room, sitting in a chair, and you decide you want to stay in that chair. In this moment, are you acting freely? The compatibilist would say yes. You're doing exactly what you want to do. Your action, staying seated, perfectly matches your internal desire, the will to stay seated. Now, what if someone walks in, holds a gun to your head, and says, stay in that chair, or else? You stay in the chair. Are you acting freely now? The compatibilist says no. You're being coerced. Your action isn't a result of your own will. It's a result of an external force compelling you. Notice that in both scenarios, the outcome is the same. You stay in the chair. And in both cases, the fact that the room is locked, a deterministic constraint you might not even know about, is irrelevant to the question of your freedom. The locked door is determinism, the fixed facts about the universe you can't change. The compatibilist argues that real freedom isn't about being able to magically walk through the locked door. That's a superhero fantasy. Instead, freedom is about the source of your action. Did the choice come from you, your desires, your beliefs, your character, or was it forced on you? This was the revolutionary insight of classical compatibilists like Thomas Hobbes and David Hume. Writing in the 17th and 18th centuries, they wanted to save freedom and moral responsibility from the threat of a clockwork, Newtonian universe. Hobbes, in his work Leviathan, defined liberty simply as the absence of external impediments. For him, you are free to do something if you want to do it, and nothing is stopping you. A river is free to flow if it's not dammed. A person who isn't in chains is free to walk. The question of why the river wants to flow downhill or why the person wants to walk is a separate issue. As long as the action matches the will, it's a free action. David Hume, a generation later, sharpened this idea. He argued the whole debate was a mere verbal dispute. He pointed out that if our actions weren't caused by anything, they'd just be random and chaotic. We wouldn't praise someone for a heroic act if it just happened by chance. We praise them because we believe the act came from their virtuous character. Hume argued that liberty is simply the power of acting or not acting, according to the determinations of the will. In other words, you're free if, had you wanted to do otherwise, you could have done otherwise. This is a crucial point that's easy to miss. Incompatibilists demand that for free will to exist, you must have the ability to do otherwise in the exact same circumstances. They want it to be possible that if you rewind the tape of the universe to the second before a choice, with every atom in the exact same position, you could have chosen differently. The compatibilist says this is a nonsensical demand. If every single condition is identical, the outcome must be identical. That's just what causality is. So, the compatibilist rephrases the condition. Freedom means that if something about the situation had been different, most importantly, your own desire, then you could have and would have done otherwise. If you chose coffee this morning, you acted freely, if it's also true that, had you wanted tea instead, nothing would have stopped you from choosing tea. The fact that your desire for coffee was itself determined by your genetics, your upbringing, and the smell from the kitchen doesn't cancel out the freedom of the act. The act was yours because the desire was yours. Critics have called this a wretched subterfuge and a quagmire of evasion. The philosopher Galen Strawson famously argued that this is just moving the goalposts on freedom. But for compatibilists, this isn't a downgrade. It's a realistic account of what freedom is for creatures like us. We aren't disembodied souls floating outside of cause and effect. We are biological beings, embedded in a physical world. Our freedom has to be a freedom that works within that system, not in spite of it. It's the freedom to be the author of your actions, even if you're not the ultimate author of your own character. That distinction, being the author of your actions versus the author of your character, is where things get really interesting, especially when we turn this idea back on our world today. If you're finding this trip through philosophy and tech valuable, and you want to keep questioning the hidden structures that shape our lives, think about subscribing to the channel. We dive into stuff like this every week, and subscribing is the best way to support content that challenges us all to think a little deeper. Now, let's take this 300-year-old idea and see how it holds up against the most powerful predictive machines ever built. Okay, let's bring it all together. We have the problem, the seemingly deterministic world of algorithms that predict and guide our choices. And we have the proposed solution, the compatibilist idea that freedom is just acting on your desires without being forced. So what happens when we look at the algorithm age through a compatibilist lens? The picture changes a lot. The cage starts to look less like a prison and more like a very, very efficient concierge. Let's go back to Netflix. The algorithm predicts with 98% certainty that you'll love a German sci-fi thriller. It puts it on your home screen with cool artwork. You read the description, feel a spark of interest, and press play. Are you acting freely? A hard determinist says no. You were manipulated. Your choice predetermined by code. A libertarian says maybe, but only if you could have resisted and chosen a terrible rom-com just to prove a point. But the compatibilist asks a simple question. Did you want to watch that show? If the answer is yes, then you acted freely. The algorithm didn't force you. It didn't hold a gun to your head. It made a highly educated guess about your internal desires, and it was right. In this view, the algorithm isn't a puppet master. It's a mirror. It's reflecting your own predetermined, but still authentic desires back at you. It's basically an externalization of your own will. The fact that your desire was predictable doesn't make it any less your desire. As long as the choice came from your internal motivation, you are the free cause of that action. The algorithm just removed the friction, the hours of mindless browsing, between your desire and its fulfillment. This is where the work of modern compatibilist philosopher Daniel Dennett is so helpful. Dennett argues that free will isn't some pre-existing magical property, but an evolved, practical skill. It's a set of abilities we've developed to navigate a complex world and make choices that respond to reasons. For Dennett, we are biological algorithms ourselves. Our brains are massively complex prediction machines. To demand that our choices be uncaused is to misunderstand what we are. Dennett suggests that free will is the ability to see future possibilities, weigh them, and pick the one that best suits our goals. From this angle, a powerful A isn't the enemy of free will. It can even be an enhancer of it. The algorithm does some of the predictive heavy lifting for us. It sifts through an impossibly vast sea of information and presents us with a handful of options that are highly relevant to our goals. It can actually help us make better choices by curating the world for us. This also helps us make sense of the famous neuroscience experiments that supposedly disproved free will. In a landmark 1983 paper, Benjamin Libet showed that a spike in brain activity, the readiness potential, happened a few hundred milliseconds before a person was consciously aware of their decision to act. For years, this was paraded around as proof that our brains decide for us, and our conscious choice is just a story we tell ourselves after the fact. But from a compatibilist view, this interpretation falls apart. Why should we identify ourself only with that tiny sliver of conscious awareness? Your brain is you. Your subconscious is part of your decision-making process. That readiness potential isn't some alien force making a choice for you. It's your brain starting the deliberation process. It's the groundwork being laid before the final, conscious seal of approval. Libet himself even noted that subjects still had a conscious veto power, a free won't, to stop the action, which some see as a window for real agency. The brain isn't a simple chain of dominoes. It's a dynamic, self-modifying system. This fits perfectly with a compatibilist view of the will as a complex, emergent property of a physical system. So, when we see headlines that an fMRI scan can predict your choice with 60% accuracy up to 10 seconds before you're aware of it, we don't need to panic. The AI isn't reading the future. It's reading the early, subconscious stages of your decision-making process. It sees the gears turning before the final product rolls off the assembly line. The choice is still yours, flowing from the intricate, determined, but authentic machinery of your mind. The predictability of the machine and the predictability of your brain are two sides of the same coin. Neither one erases your agency, they just expose how it actually works. This compatibilist framework is elegant, but we can't ignore the dark side here. It's one thing for an algorithm to be a neutral mirror, reflecting our desires. It's another thing entirely for it to become a warped mirror, subtly shaping and creating desires that weren't there to begin with. The line between a helpful recommendation and a coercive manipulation is where things get messy. This is where we have to go back to Hume and Hobbes's core idea. Freedom is the absence of external coercion. An algorithm that suggests a movie you end up loving is one thing. An algorithm that exploits a known gambling addict's data profile to push them towards an online casino is something else entirely. In the first case, the algorithm serves your will. In the second, it arguably overrides your rational, long-term will to be healthy and stable by stimulating a short-term, compulsive desire. This is a form of coercion, just a subtle, psychological one. It's the digital version of a gun to the head, only the gun is a perfectly timed notification designed to trigger a dopamine hit. We see this in the dark patterns on websites that trick users into choices they didn't intend, like signing up for a subscription that's nearly impossible to cancel. We see it in the spread of misinformation, where algorithms learn a user is susceptible to conspiracies and then create a feedback loop that drags them deeper into a distorted reality, shaping their beliefs and, in turn, their will. A true compatibilist would argue that in these cases, your freedom is being constrained because an external force, the algorithm's manipulative design, is compelling you to act against your own better judgment. The the action is no longer flowing from your authentic self. This brings us to the ultimate question: responsibility. If our wills are shaped by our determined character, and our digital world is now actively shaping that character, who's responsible for what we do? If a teenager is radicalized by an algorithm that feeds them extremist content for months, are they solely to blame? The beauty of compatibilism is that it doesn't throw responsibility out the window. In fact, it's designed to save it. The philosopher P.F. Strawson gave a powerful argument for this. He said that no matter the truth about determinism, we, as social creatures, can't just give up on our reactive attitudes. These are our deeply ingrained emotional responses to others' actions, like gratitude, resentment, praise, and blame. When someone helps you, you feel grateful. When someone hurts you, you feel resentful. These attitudes are the glue of our society. To stop blaming someone for a malicious act because their brain made them do it is to stop treating them like a person and start treating them like a broken machine. Compatibilism lets us keep these attitudes. We can hold someone responsible for an action if it came from their will, even if that will was determined. We praise the hero because their heroism reflects their character. We blame the villain because their villainy reflects theirs. The question of responsibility shifts from, could they have done otherwise, to, did the action reflect who they are? In the algorithm age, this means we can and should still hold individuals responsible for their choices. You are still the one who clicks, scrolls, and buys. Your actions still flow from your will. But this framework also lets us assign a huge new layer of responsibility to the architects of these digital systems. If a company designs an algorithm that it knows is manipulative and exploits psychological weaknesses to coerce users into harmful behavior, then that company bears significant moral responsibility. They have become the agent of coercion in the compatibilist equation. We can say that a user is responsible for their actions, and that the platform that manipulated them is also responsible for creating a coercive environment. It's not a zero-sum game. This is maybe the most important takeaway for our time. This debate is no longer just an academic exercise. It has profound legal and ethical implications. The compatibilist framework gives us the right tools. It lets us preserve human dignity and moral responsibility in an increasingly predictable world, while also giving us the philosophical justification to demand accountability from the powerful forces now shaping our very desires. So, where does this all leave us? That nagging feeling that your choices aren't entirely your own is, in a way, correct. You are part of a vast web of cause and effect, and that web now includes powerful algorithms designed to predict your every move. The libertarian dream of a ghost in the machine, a will that's free from all prior causes, is probably a fantasy. But the hard determinist's conclusion that we're all just helpless puppets is equally flawed, a bleak surrender of our own dignity. The truth, as compatibilism suggests, is more nuanced and, ultimately, more empowering. Your freedom isn't an illusion, it's just been misdefined. Freedom isn't the ability to act against causality. It's the ability to act according to your own will, to have your actions be an expression of your character and desires without being chained up or held at gunpoint. The algorithms of our age don't hold a gun to your head. They hold up a mirror that reflects your own desires so perfectly and so quickly that the act of choosing can feel like it's been taken from you. But the desire is still yours. The click is still yours. The responsibility is still yours. The choice to watch this video was predicted by a complex system. Yes, it was suggested to you based on a mountain of data that said you, the person you are, would be interested in this very topic. But the system didn't force your hand. It presented an option that aligned with your pre-existing, determined will, and you chose to act on it. You acted freely. The challenge now is to become more aware of this dynamic, to tell the difference between the helpful mirror and the manipulative one, to recognize when an algorithm is serving our will and when it's trying to subvert it. The battle for free will in the 21st century isn't about fighting determinism. It's about ensuring that we remain the authentic source of our actions. It's about building a digital world that respects our agency by serving our will, not by dictating it. So, the next time you find yourself endlessly scrolling, or you see that 98% match on a movie you've never heard of, ask yourself the compatibilist question. Am I being forced to do this, or am I simply doing what I want to do? The answer will tell you everything you need to know about whether you are free. The real question is this: now that you know the difference, how will you choose to use that freedom?